All right, so we're diving into something pretty incredible today. It's just a single 18-page document. But here's the kicker. It wasn't filed by some high-powered law firm. It was filed by one man representing himself. And this thing, it's not just an appeal. It's more like a constitutional manifesto that's putting Idaho's entire judicial system on trial. Let's get right into it. So this whole massive legal battle, it really boils down to one single powerful question. You see it right here. Can a court system, the very place we go for justice, be used to basically rubber stamp fraud? I mean, that's what Jeremy Bass's appeal is forcing the Idaho Supreme Court to answer. And it really strikes at the very purpose of our justice system. And listen, don't make the mistake of thinking this is just another run-of-the-mill appeal. It's not. As this legal scholar points out, this is, and I'm quoting here, one of the most sophisticated attempts by a self-represented litigant we've seen. He's essentially turning a personal fight into a massive constitutional showdown. So how in the world did we get here, right? To really get a grip on these huge constitutional questions, we've got to understand the human story behind it all. This is about Jeremy Bass, his home in Idaho, and a foreclosure that he says was completely rigged from the very beginning. And this is the number that makes it all painfully real. We're talking about approximately $305,000. That's the home equity Bass says was on the line, a massive financial stake that he argues was just poof, erased through a completely wrongful sale. Okay, so the timeline here is absolutely critical to understanding what happened. First, Bass says he was actively trying to pay off his mortgage. He was working on it. But then, bam, February 29th, 2024, the rug is just yanked out from under him. His property gets sold at a trustee's sale, and almost immediately he's facing eviction. This threw him into a fight not just to save his house, but to prove the entire sale was a total sham to begin with. And this is where the whole thing really escalates. You see, Bass isn't just quibbling over missed payments or something like that. No, he's making a much bigger claim. He's alleging that the auction itself, the legal process for the foreclosure, was a complete sham, a pre-coordinated, totally rigged game. This slide really gets to the core conflict in this case. On one side, you have the lower court, which wanted to keep things super narrow. They were basically saying, hey, this is only about ejectment. Who has the right to be in the house right now? It's kind of like a referee only looking at who has the ball, not how they stole it. But on the other side, you have Bass's argument. He's saying, whoa, hold on, you have to look at how they got the ball. If the sale was based on fraud, then the new owner never had a legal right to the property in the first place. So what does this rigged game actually look like? Well, Bass lays out some pretty incredible claims. Things like insider chats happening before the auction, bidders getting secret information that nobody else had. But honestly, the most jaw-dropping claim is this: pre-printed checks. Think about that for a second. Checks already printed out for the exact final bid amount before the auction was even finished. I mean, how is that even possible unless the winner was already decided ahead of time? So, facing this massive fight, what does Bass do? He tries to get a lawyer. Makes sense, right? And then he tries to get another one, and another. All told, he contacted over 125 law firms over a couple of years, and every single one said no. They either had conflicts of interest or just didn't practice in that specific niche of law. So this wasn't a choice for him. He was absolutely forced to go it alone. Now, his inability to find a lawyer after contacting so many firms isn't just a sad part of the story. It's actually a key legal argument. Bass introduces this idea of being per force pro se. It's a fancy term, but what it means is simple. He's representing himself by necessity, not by choice. He's arguing that the legal system itself left him no other path, and that fact becomes a cornerstone of his entire constitutional challenge. Okay, so all of this leads us to the appeal itself. And Bass didn't just file some simple complaint. No way. He launched what you could call a comprehensive 15-point legal assault on pretty much every single aspect of that lower court's judgment. Now, we're not going to go through all 15 points one by one, but this table gives you a really good sense of the sheer scope of his challenge. He's not just pointing out one little mistake. He's claiming there was a whole pattern of errors across the board. How evidence was handled, procedural violations, due process issues, and how the actual laws were applied. He's basically saying the court got it wrong at every single critical turn. But among all those 15 points, there is one that stands out. It's the most explosive, the most personal. Bass alleges that the judge who was presiding over his case had a major conflict of interest, one that wasn't fully disclosed. So here's what the conflict is about. The judge in this foreclosure case, he had previously presided over Bass's very contentious divorce. And according to Bass, that divorce was messy. It involved some pretty serious allegations that were later admitted to be fabricated. So the fear here is, how can a judge who has a history of hearing these negative, even if they were false, claims against Bass, how can that judge be truly impartial in this new, high-stakes case? Bass is arguing the judge's only partial disclosure of this history just tainted the whole process from the start. And that brings us to the big picture, why this one case happening in Lewiston, Idaho, could have massive implications, not just for the state, but maybe even nationally. Bass has very strategically taken his personal fight and elevated it into a direct constitutional challenge to the way Idaho's entire court system works. This right here is the first of his 2 knockout questions for the Supreme Court, and it's like a philosophical bombshell. He's basically asking, is a court's job just to follow procedures, even if those procedures are being used to rubber stamp obvious fraud? Or is the court's real purpose to find the truth? It really challenges the very definition of justice. And the second question is just as powerful. Remember his per first pro se status, being forced to represent himself? Well, here he's asking if it's even remotely fair for the system to expect a regular person, especially one forced into this situation, to have the same level of deep, specialized legal knowledge as a foreclosure attorney who's been doing this for years. I mean, what does equal access to justice even mean if the bar to even participate is set impossibly high? And in the end, this quote really is the best way to think about this whole document. It is a constitutional gauntlet thrown down right at the feet of Idaho's judicial system. It forces the Idaho Supreme Court to make a choice. They can either treat this like any other routine property dispute, or they can step up and confront the deep, systemic questions this appeal raises about fraud, about fairness, and about what justice truly means for people who are left to navigate this incredibly complex legal world all on their own.